Hello there, and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back once again here to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And today, if you didn't know by reading the title, seeing the thumbnail, we are discussing ending your career story or finishing your career story. So this is one of those things that a lot of wrestlers, have to go through, and they're trying very hard to find themselves a opponent to face in their final match, and a final story to write them out of wrestling and retire and maybe do some more backstage stuff, maybe make special appearances here and there or whatever else. But for the most part, now their career is properly over. Their runs are done. Their major involvement in wrestling will be, in a more supportive role, and their in-ring career is a more in the back of the mind type of thing. Now, this isn't solely, I guess, a TNA thing or whatever. It's a universal wrestling thing, but we're talking about it here because it's one of those things. A lot of TNA wrestlers, TNA legends, TNA icons, you could argue that, like Abyss, he retired a couple of years back in a TNA ring at one of the biggest shows of the year, and that was a great moment. But, what went into, all of that was a lot of thought. And, potentially Chris Park was leaving at the time, I think. Or maybe he was thinking about leaving, and they said, well, if you're going to finally leave, or just going to, completely retire or whatever else it is, we want to make a moment out of it, and we want to make something out of it, and, give you a big farewell, type thing, having a match, having one last little run and whatnot. Like everything that went into it was, thought about, and it was like, okay, well, if I'm going to come back, who do I want to wrestle, and why do I want to wrestle them? Now, that's not the most perfect example, but it was it was an idea, and they followed it through, and they did that. That was the process. They brought the guy back. He'd been the Chris Park lawyer character, and that was a good gimmick. That was a really good gimmick, and whatnot. But then, the monster's coming out for rare appearances. And that's good too, because again, it keeps him to being like, still somewhat relevant, but more protected, having to do less bumps. He'd taken a lot of bumps and was hurting, and, it was obvious in his performances that he was hurting, and it was time to, look at lacing up those boots for good. And, everyone's sad to see him go and whatnot. But again, people were in respect of him, and he did the best of what he could with what he had at the time. And his body did take a lot of punishment during his life, and his career. So people understood that, and, took it to heart that this was, his probably his swan song and whatnot. In wrestling, he got inducted into the Hall of Fame and whatnot. So that effectively put a cap on his career, and tied it up with a bow. Yes, I know he did some stuff in WWE, but it was very limited stuff, mainly as a manager and whatnot, that sort of stuff. And he does some stuff backstage, but he doesn't really he hasn't done very much, and he probably won't do very much there in the future. Probably, he definitely won't be having any matches. He knows that his body is a bit too beaten up for that now, and it's, time to wind down and, just focus on being a backstage guy, or helping out in what ways he can. And I wish he was still in TNA because he would add invaluable insights into, wrestling and whatnot, that, could be useful there backstage. But obviously, he's gone to WWE and whatnot. They, gave him a good offer, obviously, or whatever, and whatnot. So yeah, this is one of those things. It's how it goes. I don't think we can sort of count the Cowboy James Storm out yet. Same with Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, and maybe even some guys like Wildcat Chris Harris. Like, though I still kind of feel like he has sort of more or less sort of put those boots up for a kind of a bit. He doesn't really do as much, though. His matches that he had, or one of the matches that he had there, was quite good. There, I think it was actually their second match that was in the Impact 1000 or whatever it was, I believe. That one was, I think that one was the better one. Or was it? Yeah, I think that was it. Anyway, so but they returned at Slammiversary, and I think it was Slammiversary, wasn't it? And teamed with some other guys there to fend off Honor No More. So, I don't know whether you can sort of put that there, but there's been a few people, Bobby Roode, I'm going to bring him up, that sort of haven't gotten that opportunity. He's sort of retired now, I think, and it sucks that he didn't really get to sort of go out the way he wanted to, and I'll say the same thing about Triple H. Sucks that he didn't he didn't go out the way he wanted to. He got health issues there and whatnot, and fair enough that he doesn't want to step back in the ring and chance, his health, after that. But, got to take that sort of thing seriously and make sure you're as healthy and can live your life as much as what you can. So yeah, like that's, absolutely fair enough. But the same with Bobby, like he's, I believe he's got several serious injuries or whatnot, or specifically back injuries from what I'm not 100% sure. So if I'm not quite right with that, just you can let me know in the comments if you like, or whatever. But yeah, I do understand that he's apparently got some kind of serious injuries or whatnot, and just basically has called it a day and said, no, well, that's basically it. But and it's a bit sad that, again, he didn't really get to put a cap on the end of his career the kind of way I guess he really wanted to. I think he could have been used way better in WWE, and maybe not in NXT. He was used pretty well there and did some kind of cool stuff and whatnot. I think, as it is, Vince McMahon didn't know how to pull people on the main roster, and didn't really know what to do with anyone, and didn't really think he had plans for anyone or whatever for the most part, unless it was like his babies and whatnot he had. So unless it was absolutely dire, he was going to lose WrestleMania or whatever attendance numbers and lose money on things, so, or have to move venues and whatnot. So yeah, he wouldn't have wanted to do that, which is fair enough in some ways. But again, when you have something in your hands that's white hot, you play that hand that's white hot, or you strategically try to play that hand, that's white hot. You try to make the most out of that thing and say, okay, well, even if I don't agree or I don't see it or I don't understand it or whatever, you go with it because it makes you money, that's the way of it. So it's a bit tough sometimes in that regard of having, all this stuff happening and having these guys, who organically get over, kind of, I don't know, get in the way of that or whatever. But that's what you've got to do. But anyway, still, like, there's so many people. Amazing Red, Samoa Joe. Those Joe's doing some good stuff. I still don't know that you could, like, he's still working, and I don't know. He's got to be thinking like this too. Like, anyway, same with EY and Kaz, and that's why I think, like, Kaz is sort of, starting to really roll the dice. He's starting to really try to put himself in that picture of being like, I was worthy, and I think he certainly was worthy. Maybe I don't know whether he really will win the title. I kind of don't see it because I don't see him, like, doing a lot of media. But then again, it's tough to see who's doing a lot of media sometimes because there's not a lot of media out there on TNA wrestlers and whatnot, or not more major ones at least. So it's kind of tough. Though there is some on some people, so it's obvious to me, like, it's just Joe Hendry's the next person and whatnot. But again, we won't go too deep into that. But again, if you're looking at, like, someone like Drew Galloway, his career is going great. Like Eli Drake, his career is going great. These guys aren't at the end of their careers. Somebody like Joe Hendry, he's at the start of his career. Really, he's been around for like 10 years or whatever it's been, but he's still, like, at the very beginning of his career because he hasn't been a made man. He's just sort of starting to really ascend to that pinnacle. But you just have to look at, like, guys that are, like, at the end of their career or nearly at the end of their career and saying, hey, well, how do you put that cap and that last little point at the end, like what Sting did, there in AEW. And I do feel like he should have done something in TNA, or at least whatever, made some references there to that and whatnot, as well. But it didn't. I don't think it happened. From what I know. But that's the thing. Like, if a wrestler doesn't get that or doesn't do that, I feel like it's a real letdown to the fans. And eventually, like, they realize it themselves. Like, but then sometimes it's like too late. They go, man, I really should have just gone out there and had one more big swan song and then, or whatever, and then called it a day. But that's tough to see sometimes, I think, and that's the thing. I get that that's the business. You're in this business so much for the fans along the way. Like, you have to dedicate everything to the fans, but you owe everything to the fans because they're the ones that really make you. The fans can only make or break anyone. So they decide what works and what doesn't work, what gets over and what doesn't get over. If they weren't interested or they didn't really care or whatever, then they'd just stop watching. Then they'd just stop attending. Then they'd just stop, buying merch, buying pay-per-views, whatever, etc. That's the real metric of how interested or how invested fans are. Fans might not like something in a way, but they're like, well, they're trying to tell us a story, and they know that, emblematically, and they're trying to tell us this story with this character. Maybe we're a bit sick of that character, but that's kind of the point. We're sick of this character because they're a heel and they're doing, heelish bad things, whatnot, and that sort of thing. So you're really getting those things together that, put together this character that is, gets booed. And I think some people have mislabeled that as, like, people legit hate them, and things like that, which is really weird. But anyway, when fans actually hate something, they're apathetic to it. They don't cheer or boo. They just sit on their hands. I hate this. I don't like this. I'm not going to boo in the crowd because that's giving a reaction. Really, in some ways. It's funny how, like, I think even the anti-Cena movement and whatnot, realistically, they were just trying to show, in a sense, WWE, hey, this is what we want. We don't want this, white knuckle good guy. And I thought those were passe, like a few years ago. But now here you are giving us the same, white knuckle good guy, that was passe like a few years ago and whatnot. So, and you're trying more and more to give, that white knuckle good guy more white knuckle good guy attributes, not just attributes that are, endemic of that person or that, wrestler or that their character or whatever. Just no, you must cheer this person because we say so. They're a good guy. Cheer them. Like they do good things. They kiss babies. Blah blah blah. Like all the typical tropes of being a good guy. They salute the troops. Blah blah blah. That sort of stuff. They're American patriot. Blah blah blah, etc. All that stuff. Whatever. And that doesn't translate internationally. That 100% doesn't translate internationally, especially when you talk about other countries and whatnot, like India or China or whatever and that sort of thing. But yeah, like when you're talking about the specifics of it, it really doesn't translate because not everyone globally is an American. I know America, not everything revolves around you, shock horror. But unfortunately, that one of the best, or a lot of the best wrestling shows and programs are in the US, and so they revolve around a lot of American sort of ideologies and whatnot, that sort of thing. And certainly here in Australia, we have a lot of sort of similar, like base values in some ways, I think, but still, I think there is a lot of different values over here to over there, especially whatever among the conservatives and whatnot or whatever, or the liberals or whatever, and whatnot. So, but anyway, we're going to talk. Get back to talking about the people that are trying to finish up the loose ends. Like I think I said, Amazing Red, but it depends on what they think as well. But in my opinion, like if you go out there and, you go ahead and go to a small show, like MLW or whatever, some of the more indie wrestling, yeah, sure, some wrestling fans will know about this sort of thing, but a lot less people will really know about it. Now, I know that TNA is still, kind of small in some, margins to WWE and whatnot and that sort of thing. And some people don't even know what happens there, like, and whatnot. So, but yeah, like it's one of those things that the fans that are here and are, watching and are tuning in or do see it or do hear about it, are very appreciative of those things being, tied up and shown and saying, hey, these guys, they're going to hang it up, or this guy, they're going to hang it up, or this gal, like the same with Angelina Love or whoever, Mickey James, like anyone that you could pick, Gail Kim, they hang them up. But, we knew Gail came back a few years ago to have one more match. And I think that was okay. I think that was, I think, you talk about like Foley, how many, returns did he have, one last match or whatever else and whatnot. So how many did Flair have? How many did Hogan have when they said, "Oh, I'm probably done" or whatever and whatnot? And then how many did sort of Sting sort of have? How many did Terry Funk sort of have? There's a lot of wrestlers who haven't been able to give it up and haven't been able to give it up perhaps at the right time or in the right place or, or whatever. And, like, I liked some of the stuff Ric Flair did in TNA. I do think that he was overused in TNA. I think he was overexposed. I think for who he was and what he was, he should, like, if he's ever going to wrestle in TNA, it should be very, 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 like important matches, like, and kept to a very, very, very minimum number, and whatnot. I think that that's the only way that you can do that sort of stuff with him. One more match with Hogan, or sort of with Hogan, or whatever, that would have been, I think that was fine, and whatnot. I think, a match with Jay Lethal, that was fine, and whatnot. I think those were all right. I don't really remember many other matches that he really had. I know he was involved in Lethal Lockdown. I don't think that was a smart move or whatever. I think that was a bit dumb there, or whatever. I don't think that was the right way to sort of present him. I think he should have been, like, not in there. Or same with a lot of, like, non-wrestlers, like, like Garrett Bischoff and Eric Bischoff probably shouldn't be in there, like things like that. But again, like, I'm not talking about them. But again, like, just knowing, hey, well, what's the end game? Where's the end game? I think the match that he had with Sting, as his final TNA match, I think that was good as well. It really reminisced back to their match at the end of Nitro, and whatnot. So that was a bit of, history there that sort of carried over into TNA. That was pretty good. Though, again, at that point, I think he'd been really, really overexposed. So, like, but yeah, like, if you involve him in a match like Lethal Lockdown, as he just gets in there to, interfere or whatever else, and he's not an actual competitor in the match properly, he's just an interference or whatever for the heels or whatever, I think that's fine. I just think that he shouldn't have been an, legit competitor in a match. Same with, like, Bret Hart. Like, when he came back and had a match with Mr. McMahon, like, I think they booked that wrong and whatnot, but still, like, that probably should have been it. Like, he shouldn't have come back after that and won the US title and then come back and fought the Nexus or whatever and all that sort of stuff. So, what, and it's tough, but again, you could have figured it out, or you could have just wrote him off, or, had one less member on each team or something or whatever, or even found somebody else that you were kind of doing not a lot with and that sort of thing to put in there or whatnot. So, it's all about how you use people, in their last, like, runs and whatnot, and how they, can perform on, the top level while not, being physically as capable as what they have been in the past. And you can do that with a few smoke and mirrors and a few different things and whatnot, and that sort of thing. So, getting that right and getting that together and, making a a whole package for somebody for their entire career, showcase, over, however long it's been, like, look at The Undertaker when he retired, or properly retired. he had a cinematic match, but, like, yeah, he had one last, real match, and, then he had a cinematic, like, sometimes that kind of works, sometimes that doesn't kind of work. You get that visual, or whatever, of him literally riding off into the sunset or riding off into the night or whatever else, that's the end, this was, or whatever, him coming out and at was it Survivor Series or WrestleMania and having one last thanks to the audience and having his Hall of Fame induction speech and whatnot and that sort of thing, like, that sort of stuff really, gives it, like, this is 30 years of The Undertaker or whatever it is. Like, you're trying to say this is starting to be the, the cap, and just saying, hey, goodbye to this character. They might turn up here and there, but their chapters of really being here are kind of over, and they're kind of in the past, and they're just here to pop the crowd, I suppose, or whatever and whatnot. So that's cool. And like mending fences with people. Like, especially if you've had a wrestler in your promotion back in the day or whatever it was, and saying, hey, it wasn't good how, the relationship ended, and whatnot, but it is what it is. And we are at this point now, and, we can't really make it better or whatever. I can say, I'm sorry about it, but I wasn't in charge of that. That wasn't my decision. That wasn't my call, whatnot. And we'd love to, honor you and, whatever, give you some flowers that you deserve and respect you, and show you like a proper ending to your chapter, at least in our company. And if not our company, or if not entirely, just at least in our company, like saying, hey, we want to see one more with you, just one more time, and just, give you everything that you deserve, from the fans, and whatnot, and give those fans that one last great moment or whatever of seeing you as well, like giving them one more thing back for all the dedication and all the time and all the years and all the money and everything that they've spent to make you what you were today. And that's what it is. You have to placate to those fans something for every single wrestler in some way, form, or fashion, to say, this is the bookend. This is how it ends. We've seen this wrestler for whatever it is, and now, even if it's not completely over, we're going to try to push it as much as what we can, that this is probably it, and it's over, and, showcase this great wrestler, that's come to an end, as best as what we can. Look at, what's her name? I'm about to say Mean Mira or something. What's her name from ECW? Jazz, the baddest bitch. She retired in TNA like a few years back, and they did her some good justice. They gave her a great little run there and had her have a great retirement match and whatnot. They gave her a match, well, not a real match, but sort of a match like on TV after that, and whatnot. And that was kind of a fun little match or whatever that they gave her. And the run that they gave her, it was a great little run. And like, even with people that have sort of retired, you can give them one last little chapter of something that, shows the fans, hey, they cared, they wanted to come out and, say thank you and whatnot for all the years, all the time, everything that was here. Look at Victoria or Tara, when she came back to TNA, and had one last little, appearance. She didn't really have a match. She just had an appearance, but it was a great moment, and, people loved it. And it was, exactly sort of the thing that you could do with somebody who really couldn't do a whole lot, but it was a good little showing, and it really sent everyone home happy, because again, it was like, hey, come in, thank you, everyone will get a thank you, and you'll get that thank you back, and then some, so I think that every wrestler needs that. I think that if you're given that as a wrestler and whatnot, that's when you know, yep, I did the right thing, and this is the right time to call it quits. Because, when is this, like, the pink bow ever going to be tied so neatly on my career with a story like this, or with this, everything being full circle kind of thing, or the history that we've had or I've had or whatever. So, yeah, I think that's, the way to end things, and the way to look at your career realistically and say, hey, yep, there we go. That's it. So yeah, that is pretty much it here for this one. I actually had some ulterior motive somewhat in making this. I think some people might be able to guess why I kind of did that, but yeah, you can let me know your speculation. Write those down there in the comments below. But if you don't really know or don't really have a good guess or whatever, I don't mind. You can leave me just any old comment you want if you wish. And hope you guys, as I said, have enjoyed this one. And hope you guys will join me again in the next one.